It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, April 29th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's looking forward to facing those Hershey Bears again for the Phantoms.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to preview round 2 of the AHL Calder Cup playoffs, talk about how they defeated Wilkes Barre Scranton in the first round. And we are also going to dig a little bit into the Noah Cates line this season and what made them work and maybe what made them didn't work in some ways. Still no draft lottery date as of recording. My nemesis persists. I'm really annoyed at the NHL, as one can tell by how often I mention it. Other news around the NHL that could affect the Flyers. Mike Sullivan agreed to leave the Pens. It was a mutual decision, as they say. I'm air quoting that for those listening just in your ears there. And, you know, he had been the second longest tenured coach in the NHL at about 10 years. And I feel like it was time. But I also feel like there's really no shot he'll be the next head coach of the Flyers here, given the other opportunities available.
I don't know. I mean, I'll say two things. I mean, the first thing is I think people there were surprised. I don't think he was expected to go. I know people in the media always say, well, this guy can get fired and that guy can get fired, but it's kind of late in the game to fire him. So I guess something must have not lined up. I don't think it's impossible for him to go to the Flyers because we haven't heard boo about Tocchet, and he is a teacher. Sullivan will teach. I've watched him teach. And so he might be one of the few that actually would do it, and then it's just up to Comcast to overpay him, basically.
Yeah, I think it depends on if he feels any like side loyalty to Torts to not take the job for that reason.
No, I think it would be the opposite. I remember when I took over for a guy in business once, and he wanted me to kind of pick up where he left off and take it, to the next level. And I could see Torts calling him and say the same thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Who knows? We're just guessing.
I know. Also, the NHL has started announcing their award finalists, and the one that we care about the most is the Calder, and those finalists will be announced next Monday. So stay tuned for that. The Noah Cates line has been one of the bright spots in this past Flyers season. And per natural stat trick, they've had the most time on ice together of any line for the Flyers this season at 5-on-5. 568 plus minutes over 59 games. And they wound up the season with 55.77% goals for at 5-on-5, which is really good. The only significant line for the Flyers that had a higher stat than that was the kind of newly minted toward the end of the season line of Sean Couturier with Travis Konechny and Matvei Michkov, but they only had 24 games together. As opposed to the 59 games that the Cates line had. And there were a couple of other lines with some higher or better stats than the Cates line on that, but they all involved Morgan Frost, and then he was gone. So there you go, right?
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that anymore because everybody's like, oh, that guy stinks. I'm glad he's gone. It's like you hear all that. But not surprised that, the number with Michkov, but this is impressive for a line without him because, any line you put Michkov on, eventually it's going to be your best producing line. So the fact that this line did produce that well is impressive.
Yeah, I think so. And when you look at their face-offs, only 37.8% were in the offensive zone. So they were getting a lot of neutral
Yeah,
defensive
yeah.
zone starts. And all that considered, to have a much higher than 50% goals for percentage, it is a pretty strong achievement, and good bona fides for this line to come back next season, right?
Yeah, I would think it would come back, and Noah Cates certainly had a big year for him. I mean, it's never going to be huge offensively, but everything else he brings to that line is really important.
It really is, and I think he is that sort of Sean Couturier successor, two-way center there. Now, I don't think he's ever gonna be quite as good as the best version of Sean Couturier,
No, no, he won't score
you
like
know
that.
No, that's the thing. Well, I think he'll be as good as him defensively,
Yeah,
but
defensively, sure.
not offensively.
Right.
I think, that line together, though, that built so much chemistry. It'll be interesting to see how other teams potentially adjust to them next season, given some time off and
Hmm.
ways to strategize. But I still think, given the way that Tyson Foerster especially ended this season, I think they really will carry that momentum into next season.
Yeah, you would hope. I mean, I can't remember the last time the Flyers had a line that stayed intact even this long, and definitely not season to season. Like, forget that.
Right. And it's interesting because I looked at the stats of having two of them and one of the three not there, and most of their stats went down.
Yeah.
Their scoring chances percentage was at 52.4% with all three of them there. Their high danger chances 4% is 58.5% with all three. The one rare exception of the stat that goes up is expected goals for percentage, with Cates and Brink and without
Hmm.
Forster, which I thought was kind of fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of fascinating. But again, it just shows you how, like, chemistry and just how guys can complement each other can supersede what talent is, and just, have the basically the line be more important than any one player.
Yeah, and natural stat trick allows you to kind of pull the threads and see what
Right.
these lines are like without, and then it gives you with none of them out there. And so any Flyers line combo without any of these three players involved in it is at 53.37 expected goals for. And they are 54.71% as a line. So with them, the Flyers are clearly better than without
Yeah,
them
there's no doubt they're
overall.
better. Yeah, they're better. I think that definitely proves it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you want to widen the picture a little bit here and look at them against the NHL in its entirety for the regular season, I took a look at that on Money Puck, and they were 59th in the NHL as a line, in goals per 60 of lines with more than 150 minutes together as a line. The Coots line, on the other hand, were 13th. So I think, you look at that goals per 60 and you could tell that that Coots line with TK and Mitchkov, we know from the eye test that that latter line was more productive from a points perspective. And it has
Right.
to be with TK and Mitchkov as your top
Right.
two point getters,
Yeah, there's no doubt about
right?
that. Hmm.
There's no doubt. But for goals percentage, they were much closer in rank, like with 68th and 71st. So when you look at the combined effort, obviously we know Mitchkov is not a defensive guy, right?
Right.
And
Right.
TK isn't, he does play
Mm,
on the
he could
penalty
do
kill,
it, but
but
it's not his forte.
no, no. So we saw the balance is much better there. And that's why I think this Kate's line is a solid second line for the
Hmm.
Flyers as it currently stands. And it should stay that way. Now, is that the case moving forward when we get more guys like a Luchanko? Maybe not. But for now, they're a solid second line.
Yeah, I can see going into next season with it.
Yeah, I absolutely would. Now, as far as the potential downsides to continuing with this line, we obviously know they need to shoot more.
Right.
Uh, and I think they did as at the tail end of the season. And again, we saw that with Tyson Foerster's scoring, frenzy that he had
Yeah.
there. I would say we need Brink to be a little bit more productive to kind of round out that line
Yeah, it would help it.
there. Yeah, and they could be a little better defensively, but obviously that's where we see the difference between Sean Couturier and Noah Cates as
For
that
sure.
center, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would think so.
Yeah, so I do think this is a real solid line with potential to continue, and we'll see if other teams
We
figure
got to
them
see who
out,
the
right?
next coach, what he thinks. But
Yeah, I know
I
that's
could see
true
it.
too.
I could see it being tried out again for sure in preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, they should, and, I'd love to see Bobby Brink come back raring to go to, again, round out this line a
Yeah.
little bit more solidly, and I think they'd be pretty dialed, and I'd be, you know, big picture, not satisfied with the top 6, but as this team is currently constructed, very satisfied with the top
Yeah,
6.
I mean, you have to lower your expectations a little. Like, I
Exactly.
get
A
it.
little bit as of now, but, anything can happen, new coach, camp battles, we'll see,
Right.
and we'll have lots more to talk about on that front. In the meantime, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms are heading to round 2 of the AHL Calder Cup playoffs. We're gonna talk about how they got there coming up next. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. I hope we can do that again soon for the Flyers. There's so much intensity, the speed, the energy in the building. It's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab those playoff tickets, even for those must see matchups. And prices actually drop as the puck drop gets closer. With those last minute deals, you can save up to 60% for sports, concerts, comedy, and my personal favorite, the theater. Their all in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time app even shows you panoramic seat views so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. And with Game Time ticket coverage, I know I'm protected whether it's cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or that 24-hour return guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On tomorrow's show, we are going to dig into this past season for Travis Konechny and Owen Tippett, who
Yep.
had very interesting cross paths trajectories this season. And for two guys that are ostensibly, a huge part of the Flyers offense right now, maybe they could have been doing better. So we are going to take a look at their play. Plus, we're going to answer your mailbag questions. So get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. Send us a message on any of our socials or comment over on YouTube. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms, of course, won their best of 3 series over Wilkes Barre Scranton, 2 games to none. This is sounding familiar because that's exactly what happened last year. And they won the first game 5-2, and then won a much closer matchup in the second game 3-2. And we had talked in our preview of this series about the projected lineup, and I think the only kind of significant difference there was how they constructed the third line, and they put
Hmm.
Jett Luchanko on that third line with Garrett Wilson and Anthony Richard. And I do think, we talked a little bit about it with putting him with vets.
Yeah.
I think that has helped his game tremendously. I think he had probably the best game of his Phantoms stretch so far in that first game in the series, but he's got 2 assists in both games for 4 assists total. that leads the league in points in the playoffs so far. I know small sample size, but he's tied for that lead. And I just feel like with those vets out there who know exactly where to be, I think that helps Jett a little bit figure out his place in the lineup out there on the ice.
Yeah, I think so. I was seeing some of those passes, and I do think with those guys there is more certainty, and so
Mhm.
his playmaking can really come out. And then if he can start scoring, because the thing about Jett Luchanko is he's really not a playmaking center; he's more of a shooting center, and so we're still not seeing that part yet. But the assists are good. I mean, you'll take the points, but you want to see his whole game come out, and that hasn't
Right.
happened yet.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, again, a little better at finding the right space and
Yeah.
creating space for others. I think that he's pretty strong on the forecheck,
Hmm.
centering that line. He does still need to shoot more on target. He missed a few, and I'm sure there were some block shots in there, but 3 shots on goal in 2 games isn't exactly where we want him to be,
No.
right?
No.
But his overall game is definitely improving, and I love to see that. The only other kind of ding right now is that he's still taking a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
In the regular season games, he played 9 games with the Phantoms, and he had 8 penalty minutes in those 9 games, which isn't great, but it's not bad either.
No.
In 2 games in the playoffs, also 8 penalty minutes, and
Yeah, that's
that's
not good.
not good. And so it is I think it's part of the reason why it's so good that he's spending this time with the Phantoms is that he's gotta learn where that line is and how
Right.
he can play in the pro game, and it's so much better that he's doing that at the AHL level with the Phantoms than in the NHL with the
Yeah, I
Flyers.
mean, that's what it's for. Like, that's exactly the
Mhm.
right way it should go, and I agree. It's good.
Yeah, and besides Luchenko, like, the thing that impressed me so much about this 2-game series is that the guys who should be stepping up are. They're taking more shots and driving play, and that's Ole Lexell, it's
Mhm.
Jacob Gaucher, it's Bump, it's Abels, it's Richard, it's Emile Andre. They're all getting points on the board so far, and I just think that that's what's important, and that's what has to happen.
Yeah, that is what's important. I think Gaucher looks really good. I think
Mhm.
Bump looks good. I think again, it's a small sample size, and I see certain plays where it's kind of like, okay, all right, I get the good here. I think there's still things where he's uncertain about too.
Yeah, I listen, I love his confidence. I mean, he called the Wilkes Barre Scranton defense
Yeah, that's a
soft.
bad move, actually.
I
In the
listen.
AHL, you're gonna get your head taken off by doing that.
Yeah, well, he didn't get on the board in the 2nd game after he made those comments. So that's
That's where Lappy
maybe
should sit him down and say, "In the locker room, great. On an
yeah,
interview, don't go there. You're a rookie. Don't do it."
yeah. He had 6 shots on goal total between the 2 games, not too bad. But the 2 goals in game 1, just phenomenal. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it was good. I saw those.
yeah, and he just finds the open ice really
Mhm.
well, and that's how he got one of the 2 goals, was just
Yeah.
being in the open ice and being there to tap in a rebound, and
Yep.
I love that, and so I love his instincts, I love where
Mhm.
he's going, and, I think that he'll have some good quality time, like we said, next season, but I'd love to see where this goes for the rest of the playoffs here, if he
Yeah,
can
for
keep it up.
sure. Yeah, I mean, right now they're advancing, and let's see what he does with the experience.
Yeah, Ollie Luxell had the most shots on goal between the 2 games with 8. He had a goal and 2 assists in those 2 games. Anthony Richard, 2 goals and an assist. Just he's taking a lot of extra shots, and we know he has a good shot, and he's trying
Yeah.
to take advantage of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
40
for sure.
40% shooting percentage, for him, which is pretty solid there.
Insane, yeah.
I know. Jacob Gaucher, as you mentioned, 7 shots on goal, a goal and an assist, and then, Russ, your absolute favorite, Helge Ron's getting the game-winning goal in game 2, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great was it like a backhand shot? Like, it's crazy the way he did it
Like, from the ice
from the
practically.
ice. but this guy has talent, and I just feel like, yeah, he never got a look in the NHL this year, and that was bad. That was an organizational failure, I think, because you could see what he is capable of doing, and I just hope he comes back because he's a good guy to have around and a good depth guy.
I agree. Emile Andre was interesting because I felt like he was very good at 5-on-5, and he was driving play, you know, creating
Mhm.
opportunities, really good at the zone exits. On the power play where I want him to stand out, I don't know that he was as much. The Phantoms power play was 1 for 8 between the
Mhm.
2 games, and on Friday, they didn't convert on a 5-on-3 that was extended, and
Yeah,
that
that's
kinda
bad.
bummed me out, right?
Yeah, I was seeing some of that. That didn't look good. Yeah, I mean that's got to improve for them to be able to advance again. So yes, that's something they need to work on.
Yeah, now the area that I'm very pleased with is goaltending. Parker Gahagan
Oh
played
yeah.
both games and just really tremendous performances in both. He faced 30 or more shots in both games and was pretty spot on. I don't think he had maybe like one of the goals he let in. I wasn't too thrilled with, but most of the time there was nothing he could do. So I think he has earned that spot and he's gonna keep it throughout
Well,
the
he's got no
playoffs as
challenger
long as
now. I mean,
nope.
Kolosov would have been the only challenger, and so that's fine. I mean, like you said, he is the guy for this year for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we'll see if he can keep it going against the Hershey Bears. We're gonna preview that series coming up next.
The NHL playoffs are in full swing, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists in NBA or goals and assists in the NHL. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after puck drop, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. I'd stick with the Capitals right now. Don't miss out.
Really?
Don't head to fanduel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
All right. I said really about the Caps because I am hoping for a comeback from Montreal there,
Oh,
but
I get it.
I
I
don't.
mean, I love the fans there and all the excitement, believe me.
Yeah, yeah, but maybe for betting, the Caps are the safer bet to
I
make
mean,
at this
unfortunately,
point.
that's just, the way it is.
Yeah, yeah. All right. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms are facing the defending Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears. And the thing about Hershey is that uh, last season they were 53, 14, and 5. This year, 44, 20, and 7. Big difference
Mhm.
between last year and this year. And I think partially, it's due to the fact that the Caps took us a step up this year and we're playing so good, and that's why we're suggesting to bet on them. But, so your AHL team is gonna suffer a little bit when your
Yes.
NHL team is better, and that's certainly part of it. I think they're not getting as good goaltending, to be honest, this year. And if you look at it, the record this year for the Phantoms against Hershey in the regular season was 5-4-1. They actually won more of those games, but they don't have the continued experience that Hershey does as a
Right.
playoff team. This was like they won the cup 2 years
Yeah.
recently. So it'll be an interesting challenge for the Phantoms, I think.
It will. And Hunter Shepard was up a little bit at the end of the season too with the
Hmm.
Caps. So I don't know how that changed this, but he's a good goalie in the AHL. He's a hard goalie to beat. I don't care what kind of regular season he had. He can be
Hmm.
tough. Adding Ethan Bear was pretty big. I mean, Ethan Bear is
Yeah.
pretty much an NHLer, and he's playing there. And so he's a really solid player too. I like Miroshnichenko. He's a very tricky guy, and he's got a terrific shot. So I mean, they have some weapons, and so Chase Prisky is pretty unheralded. Like, this is a good system team. Like, this is the Phantoms have like
Mhm.
more talent, more flashy kind of talent, but these guys can drive their system pretty well.
Right. I think that is the big difference, or that's been the difference. And that's something we've talked about with the Phantoms this year is the lack of a true system.
Yeah.
Right. They do have one, but it's very simple.
It's almost,
And
it's like, yeah, we like to do this, but play to your strengths. And it's not strong
exactly.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think, with all the new pieces, whether it was the returning guys that came down from the Flyers or, Jett Luchanko and Alex Bump getting added to the mix here, I think that they have gelled remarkably quickly, but it's unclear how sustainable that is. And in terms of, a team like Hershey is gonna do their homework, right? And they're gonna be prepared for what these guys can do in a way that maybe Wilkes Barre Scranton wasn't.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a harder series. I mean, again, 3-game series is tough. The Phantoms did a really good job with that, but this is a harder series. Like I could see this series going the distance.
Right. And this is a 5-game series now that
Yeah,
we're in
I
round
think it'll go
two.
5.
So last year when they faced each other in round two, the Phantoms lost 3-1. Yeah, I could see this going the full 5 games for sure. But it's going to be a huge, huge effort for the Phantoms to get going here. I think special teams is something that they're going to have to improve on to win the series as well. Hershey is better on the power play, but not by much. There's only 0.3% difference in terms of the regular season, but Hershey is much better on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
And with the Phantoms having a weakish power play, like the Phantoms are going to have to stay out of the box first off. And then when they are on the power play, they're going to have to figure out a way to execute in a way that they haven't as much this season.
No, that's true. And, they have Ilya Protas, and those Protas brothers are hard to handle, man. He's 6'5", and then over 200 pounds. Like that's a big guy to have to worry about. So they've got some size there too, and that's something I think that you have to worry about.
Yeah, and you mentioned the goaltending
Mhm.
comparison here. Parker Gahagan has better stats than Hunter Shepherd. I think, it's very obvious here. And Parker Gahagan's playoff stats are even better than his regular season stats thus far. Again, it's only 2 games, but he had a 2.39 goals against average in the regular season. In the 2 games, it's 2.02. And he's got a 937 save percentage. And
But
so
Shepard's got a long history in the AHL
I
playoffs, so
know
that's the only thing.
that's the difference here. And I just think this opportunity for the Phantoms is huge. And they're going to have to take advantage of the fact that Hershey had a bye in round 1. So they could be a little rusty.
They could be for
And
the first game.
yeah, and that's game 1 is so critical. If they're going to win a 5-game series against Hershey, because again, I think we both think it's going to take 5 games if they're going to win, they have to win game 1. I think
Yeah, I
there's,
mean, do we think there's a Matthew Strome revenge factor in there somewhere? Do we worry about
I
that?
mean, I don't know because it kind of happened like during the season already.
Yeah,
So I don't know that it's something that would be like a factor in the playoffs per se. I mean, there's like multiple ex Phantoms on that team. So I don't like Vecchione's on that
yeah,
team.
but he's longer gone. I mean, Strome's
I
not that
know.
long ago. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting point, but game 1 is tomorrow, Wednesday at Hershey. So it's like a 2-2-1 situation here.
right. Well, it's close
So
though, so the travel's easy.
yeah, yeah. It's just, playing on the road is always more of a challenge for the Phantoms. But so that'll be Wednesday and Friday. It'll be games 1 and 2, and then game 3 is Sunday. And it'll be interesting to see if they put Gahagan in for all 3 of those games. That's an
I
every
just
other
keep
day
going
schedule for 3
Gahagan. That's
games.
it. Cal
Yeah.
Peterson's about to hit the road, so like, just use Gahagan or die. That's my motto.
Well, let's hope it's Gahagan and not the alternative then. But games 4 and 5 are not until the following weekend, so they will have plenty of time to rest and heal up
And
after those
practice.
first 3 games, as
Practice the
long
power play.
as yeah, yeah, and make some adjustments. So hopefully, though, the Phantoms get at least 2 of those 3 games. That would be a good start.
Yeah, that's what you hope for.
All right, well, stay tuned for the results of that. We'll be back next Tuesday to recap how those first games went. And on tomorrow's show, we'll be talking Owen Tippett and Travis Konechny and answering those mailbag questions. So let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on Twitter and those other socials. SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night, until that Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. Find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.